For those of you that don't know, I'm Dayna the Organizer. I went to the bank the other day and the teller helped me out by depositing one of my checks that I got from a client because the ATM at Wells Fargo likes to give me issues. So when I got up there and I was cashing my check, she's just like, oh, you organize? And I'm like, yeah, because, you know, the name of my business is Dayna Organize My Life. That's how my client writes out my check. She's like, so what exactly does that entail? I'm like, you're asking me what I do, essentially? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, everything. I actually do a little bit of everything. I don't know one pocket of somebody's life that I have not touched through organization. She's like, so you can organize a schedule, finances, lifestyle, home management. I'm like, all of that. I can even organize a space. I can organize your mind if you let me. And she's like, oh my God, I mean, that must be a rewarding line of work. And I'm like, well, I mean, it kind of found me, Mom. Like, I wasn't really, when you have a gift, it kind of just exposes itself over time. But essentially, yes, it is quite rewarding to see my clients actually live out their goals and their potential through organization. Yeah, I sleep pretty good at night. She's like, you know what you should do? Have you ever thought about this? I'm like, what? She's like, you should organize a curriculum for high school students on how to be an organized individual before they graduate, before they go off to college, so that they can structure their lives better. And I was like, you know what's really funny about that? I remember a couple years ago when I started my organization company, one of my friends in Chicago asked me if I would be willing to speak to a bunch of high schoolers, and particularly Black inner city high schoolers that were young ladies, about organization, goal setting, all these different, like a different plethora of things that he felt like would be beneficial for them to learn if they didn't have that influence already in their life. And at the time, I didn't feel like I was somebody that should do something like that, because I mean, I'm an educated young lady. I am an intelligent young lady. I have the confidence for it, but I just felt like I didn't know if I was ready to be somebody's quote unquote role model. That's what they would see me as. And I was like, you know, I shied away from the opportunity. I'm like, that's very flattering, but I curse a lot. I don't always wear tops that aren't too low cut. And he's like, yeah, but when you come into those environments, you're not gonna bring that element of yourself. I'm like, yeah, but outside of that, I am that. And he's like, that doesn't matter. You're a person and you have different facets. Fast forward, I wanna thank him for saying that, because I didn't let any of those things I just named get in the way of me organizing people's lives that I serve now. And everybody seems to understand in this point in time, especially with all the havoc, all the chaos, all the crazy transformation that's going on in the world, which, just so I don't forget to not mention this, it's an important part. We have to have the dismantling of things for things to come together. So don't panic, stay calm. But within the dismantling, I think everybody is really eager to figure out how to strategize and how to organize, right? Now, me, I've been organizing, I mean, I don't know how long I've been organizing. Like, it literally dawned on me one day that I was even an organizer when I woke up one morning and, you know, for those of you that don't know, my grandparents raised me, and my grandmother woke me up like she does every morning. Like, she's going off to work and my grandfather's retired. They have an age difference. And I usually kind of like, if I'm not going to school, I'll take care of the home, right? When she's gone. Now, I was also a caregiver for my grandfather. I remember going into my grandfather's room, their master bedroom one morning, and my grandmother was getting ready to leave out. She had to go to work that day. And I was helping her get out the door, but when she was done getting out the door, I went over to my grandfather, who he sat in like a reclining seat, right? And after he finished breakfast, I would take the dishes off of his stand where he ate, and I would put them down in the kitchen. But I remember coming back upstairs that day and asked him if he needed anything else. I was gonna go either lay back down or I was gonna start my day. And he said, no, I don't need anything. But before I walked out the room, I stopped and I looked at the area that he was in. And he has a stand next to his recliner that was where he kept like his immediate grabbables, like, you know how you keep a pair of glasses or a reading book or a remote, like, you know, just different miscellaneous things, even medicine. And I remember looking at that stand before I walked out the room, And I was like, excuse me, Grandpa. I went right next to him and I started organizing all the books, separating all the medicines out, putting the remote in one area, putting a book, the other miscellaneous things in other ones. I wiped it down completely and I kind of walked away. And before I could walk away, he was like, Dayna. And I was like, yeah. Because it was like, it's always been second nature to me to straighten, to clean, to organize, to tidy whatever is out of place visually. And he grabbed my hand. He was like, baby, he said, what you just did, that is your gift. That is one of your gifts. I was like, Grandpa, all I did was straighten out your nightstand. He was like, no, baby. He said, you'll see what I'm talking about. He said, that's a gift. I said, plenty of people that do that, Grandpa. And I brushed it off. You know what I mean? Young Dayna has always been charismatic. She's always been outspoken. Like, my grandfather's a Pisces, I'm a Virgo. I was always like, Grandpa, please. Like, ain't nobody worried about that. But like, the more I thought about it and the more it sank in, people always called me to organize their lives. They'd call with a problem, or they'd call with a goal, and they'd ask my advice on how to strategically get to it, or they'd ask me to assist in steps in their lives that they need to take to get to the goal or to make the change. And I never really paid attention to it because I just thought it was being a helpful person. I always associated me being an organizer or a strategizer as somebody that just wants to see somebody achieve what they set out to do, or want to see somebody be able to make the change that they want to make. I never thought like, oh, I'm organizing people's lives. I always just thought like, isn't this what everybody does when somebody needs help? No, actually, that's not the case at all. So I started off, you know, becoming an organizer through simply always being like the person that assists the other person. Like, people will be like, damn, I really want to, like, you know, I want to lose some weight. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, like, what are you eating and how often do you work out? And they'll be like, oh, I guess I don't frequent the gym. I'm like, well, let's sign you up. They having a promotion over here. And I'm like, and what about your food? And they'll be like, I mean, I don't have a lot of time to cook. I'm like, you know, you can meal prep. You want me to meal prep? Like, I'd always just become the coach and the advisor of the person that was trying to achieve the goal, but I never really correlated that to being a professional organizer. Now, I think the shift happened when I started my cleaning service. So I've always felt like your space is exactly, how you keep your space is exactly, for the most part, how you keep your mind. And when I used to walk into people's places and they were cluttered or they were unorganized or there was stuff all over the place, I always just ask the person like, yeah, so let's get, you know what, you want to knock out all this stuff that's going on around us so we could actually focus on the internal? And they'll be like, I can still focus with all this. I'm like, no, you can't. No, wait, no, you can't. You couldn't possibly be able to focus on bigger things. Now, there are some people in the world that can do that, but from what I've seen, when I walk into a space, I immediately can almost connect that person's mental state right in that moment with what I'm looking at. I could be like, okay, so they haven't gotten around to folding those clothes in 3 days, and that's probably why they're so delayed in their procrastination on that paper that's due last Wednesday. Like, I'll just start piecing stuff together, and people think it's so funny because I'm observing at lightning speed. Like, I'll see a bunch of different things. Like, it's like the great analyzer when I walk into a space, right? And that's not to make people uncomfortable. I just can't help myself. And when I started my cleaning service, I thought I was going to get such a fulfillment out of going into a space and making that space rejuvenated through my ability, right? So I used to go into people's homes. I used to clean. And when I first got there, I used to always notice that people weren't necessarily so quote unquote dirty or nasty. Like, a lot of people assume if you need somebody to come help you clean, it's because you're just a pig. Like, you just all over the place. Like, you know what I mean? You could care less. You're careless. You're just, all those are words that are associated sometimes with people that need a cleaning service, when in actuality, a lot of people are just busy, but a lot of people just don't have systems. See, this is what I started to notice with a lot of my clients. Like, I'll be washing their dishes, right? Then I'll be like, okay, so where do you put the rag that you use after you wipe down the counters? This is, you know, this example sticks out. If I have to be so, I didn't even have to think about the example. This is how common it is. They'll be like, oh, I don't really have a place to put that rag. And I'm like, cause you don't really clean these counters too often with a rag. And they're like, no, I just use paper towel and a spray. And I'm like, that's a way. But also, like, this is more eco-friendly, this is more conducive. Now that we have a rag, you know, where would you like to put it? And they're just like, and I'm like, maybe we can install a hook right here. And they're like, a hook? I'm like, yeah, let's put a hook next to the sink by the kitchen counter. And they're like, okay, well, I don't have any hooks. And I'm like, okay, this is me in real time being like, I'm gonna go get you some hooks, but I'm gonna write it on a list and I'll do it towards the end of my session with you. And I realized the more I kept coming in and out of homes, I kept noticing that, like, even the simplicity of somebody having a mop, right? I'm like, okay, so where do you hang the mop when you're done? They like, I don't hang the mop anywhere. I just throw it in a corner. I'm like, so that corner is your mop holder? They like, yeah, I mean, isn't that what everybody do? I just put it in a bucket and throw it in a corner. I'm like, but the mop is still dirty. We have to detach the mop head. We have to sanitize it through a bleach cycle, and then we have to dry it, and then we have to store it back in a box after we break the mop down. They like, who's gonna do all that? I'm like, you're gonna do all that, because we're not gonna come into a space every time and see your mop in a corner in a bucket. It's an eyesore. And they're like, oh girl, I'm not. And I was like, okay, so I gave you a system. I need you to follow the system because it keeps you in order, and it later means never a lot of times. And I have to tell my clients this because a lot of people don't have systems, but not only when I create a system, some people will rebuttal with, well, I don't want to have to do all that. That creates discipline. So let's take these things and break them down. Systems create discipline. Discipline creates outcome. Now, this is going to be quite an interesting series because I just wanted to give you all the beginning of my journey as an organizer. But I feel like these pieces that I'll be creating around organization are very important for people that want to level up right now, but may not mentally have the capacity to know why they're stuck. Like, not everybody has a Dayna that can just walk into their life and be like, I get paid really good to do that for people. But if I could put it here, it could help so many people that are listening to stop and have tangible things that they can replay to remind themselves of how to create systems and structures and discipline for outcomes through organization. And I'm passionate enough about that to do it because I want to see everybody win. And that's why I got into this purpose work in the first place. So welcome to episode 1 of Dayna, the Organize My Life Queen. I'm going to be sharing tricks, tips, stories, all the things that come with organization here. And just let me know if you have any questions, because once I start opening up the vault, things might be popping up where you might be like, I want to know this, I want to know that. Just write them in the comments. I love you all. I'm sending this purpose workout with intent that it finds the individual that needs it. And I'll talk to you next time in part 2 of Dayna Organize My Life. Peace.